So, hand in hand, so ironically enough, when I started with the municipality, probably about 2 months after I started, the first community that I worked in was Westwood Hills, and met Kara, and well, I've loved her ever since, but unfortunately we've kind of stuck together.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, anyway. So just a quick recap. They were really crooked, but you know, last year was not kind to us, right? Kind to anybody. So we had, obviously, the fire, as we call it. Some flooding, so I call it the F. So we had flood 1 and flood 2, and then we had the hurricane. So the other part of what Kara was talking about is every time something else happens with regards to weather, it weakens everything again. So we saw our first mudslides in the Tantallon area after the fire caused by the flooding, and then from the hurricane, and that will continue to weaken all the ecosystems. And that's human nature, and that's what happens. But unfortunately, because we had so many events last year, and in the succession, in the quick succession that we did, you know, the infrastructure doesn't have time to repair itself or to settle. So all of the road washed out again, the culvert washed out again. Like there was a note this way, we replaced culverts like 3 or 4 times, repaired the road, like the same road over and over. And it's just because it doesn't have time to settle and fix itself with everything that we're doing before the next weather system hits it. And again, as Kara said, things are going to get worse. Like they're not going to get better. So the ground is really dry this year. Believe it or not, all that crop we had over the winter, the ground was too frozen to absorb a lot of it. So the ground's very dry. The water temperature right now in the Atlantic is warmer than it was this time last year. And we are expecting a busier hurricane system than last year. Now, NOAA and Environment Canada won't agree to the end of May officially, but with this year being a La Nina, not an El Nino from last year, La Nina works different with the way that the winds and the currents come in. So again, that pushes those storms in. So we're expecting about 25 storms in the Atlantic coast. Now, like everything else, some we get, some we don't, some skim by, some put, you know, and it's, you don't know until like, you know, the day before. But you can expect a really crappy fall. I'm sorry. That's where I'm all full of great news.
Tell us how you really feel.
I know, right? But so, you know, my boss always says, never let a good crisis go to waste, right? So we were finally able to get funding for hazard risk and vulnerability assessment, which has been on the go for about 2 years. But we just got into all the communities over the fall period. I'm not going to talk a whole lot about it, but what I do encourage you, if you have not heard about it, send us an email or go online. There's a survey on Shake Your City on halifax.ca, HRBA, because what we're doing is we're looking at all of the hazards, the risks, and the vulnerabilities across every, I don't want to say community because we're calling them focus groups because we don't put down in some cases to the community level because it's too small. But we do need that community input. So HRM has not been great at collecting statistics and data over the years, nor has anybody. And we don't have a lot of sensor data to be able to rely on with regards to, you know, wind, with regards to rainfall, what Environment Canada collects. We don't have any sensors, so we rely on other agencies, and nobody does it really well in Halifax or in HRM. So the reason for that is nobody knows the community better than the people who live in the community. So I was at one community, and I won't say there where, this 89-year-old man sat down with his wife, and she was 10 years younger. But her mother was there, and they told me the history for the last 150 years, weather-wise, in the community, who built the road, where they screwed up, nobody would listen to them, this is the size of it. So I mean, it is really important. And all joking aside, we learned a hell of a lot from them because we know, like, we don't have any statistical data like that. So if you have stories like that, or the same road floods and it's been flooding for 20 years, like, please let us know so that we can focus in on those issues. And then our voluntary vulnerable persons registry. And unfortunately, Kara was really organized. I left everything on my desk, but the projector that we didn't need. So, the voluntary vulnerable persons registry council luckily supported it unanimously last year. We started just before the winter hit, and it is for residents who may need help evacuating from their homes. For those who have visual impairments, hearing impairments, mobility issues, cognitive delays. So where this came from is, unfortunately, during Hurricane Fiona, we had an elderly resident die. They had Alzheimer's, they wandered off, and unfortunately they passed away. Their family couldn't get to them because of the hurricane, because the roads were closed, lines were down, and they just couldn't get a hold of anybody. So this person was more than able to live on their own with support, but during an emergency, the family didn't know what to do. And so we said, that's unacceptable. During the fire, again, it's the fire, we're calling it, we had a lot of people, a lot of elderly residents that are, again, more than capable of living on their own, but may not be able to get out of the house quickly if they have to evacuate on very short notice. So that's what this is for. There is criteria. There's criteria that people who don't get on the registry. I'm happy to answer questions afterwards, but again, you can find everything on halifax.ca. We're happy to help you tonight. Now, so preparedness. So everything that Kara talked about with regards to Fire Smart, again, it's not just Fire Smart. It's preparing for, unfortunately, the hurricane season that's upcoming. It's floods. It's, a crappy winter snowstorm that you can't get out. There's all sorts of things, and unfortunately where we live on the beautiful Atlantic coast, and everybody wants to be here, but we have challenges that no other city has. So we have, the coastal area is amazing, but we get storm surge, and we get erosion, and then, that changes the ecosystem, and what's growing and what's not, and what's surviving and what's not, and how that affects fire. How it affects that we saw our first mudslides, all of those things. So there's being prepared as an individual. So what does that mean? What that means is, you as an individual, are you prepared to stay in your house for at least 72 hours safely? Is your family prepared to stay in your house safely for 72 hours? As a community, are you prepared to stick together and work together as a community for at least 72 hours when something goes wrong? Put that on the other side, if you have to leave quickly, what does that mean to you as an individual? What does that mean to you as a family? And what does that mean to you as a community? So you have to be ready for all three. If it's gonna work and be truly successful. So you can't do anything to help each other if you're not ready yourself. And that's just a fact. You can't be ready, you can be ready as an individual, but if your family's not looked after and you're not ready to go, then you're not going to be able to help your community. So it all needs to work in tandem. So what does that mean? So simple things, please don't use candles in your home if you can avoid it. The only time I use candles is in my car. So I always keep a candle and a tin can and a pack of matches, the old fireplace matches. Keep those in my car. Have been stuck. I'm from Cape Breton. Many winters driving back and forth, and I've been off on the side of the road. But I have that candle, and I'll tell you, it's amazing what a candle and a tin can can heat. But safe in a car, unless your dog's in the car, because that's happened too. But so having flashlights, having lanterns, glow sticks for kids. When my boys were little. And they can't really hurt each other when they start beating each other up when they're bored. With the glow sticks, we're just having something, to keep them entertained. A crank radio, or at least a radio with batteries, so they can find out the news. And of course, we're all reliant on those silly little boxes that we carry around. A lot of people don't even have a host phone anymore. So, how do you communicate? How do you find out what's going on? So having a charger. If you have a generator, don't have it inside, always have it outside. Make sure that it's checked. Is it being monitored? We've had fires after every hurricane in houses because boys, sorry everybody, but all of you who gave birth to boys like me, but they all like to put all the pizza boxes and stuff in the oven, forget about it, lights, power comes back on, stove catches on fire, happens all the time. Right, I'll tell you. It's bad. Coleman stoves coming in the house. Again, people think that it's okay. It's not. We've had people bring Coleman stoves inside their house, put it on the oven. After the power went out again, power comes back on. everything blows up, and you name it, everything there. So just knowing how to be safe in your home when you lose power, because it's not if you lose power. I think we all know it's when you lose power. So it's pretty well guaranteed. I'd lay a whole month's salary that you're going to lose power. Yeah, so how do you cope? So again, simple things like a good old-fashioned can opener. I was at my sister's house once and she had an electric can opener. I'm like, what am I going to do with that? Like, is it really worth going down outside to plug into the generator, open? So, you know, let's make sure you can buy them at the dollar store. And then all those other things. So when my kids were little, you know, my go bag, as I call it, looked completely different. Now that, you know, all 4 kids are, well, they were gone, now they're back. But, so I was telling Kara, I fed my grandbaby peas for the first time just before I came here. So if you see me speckled with green, there's a reason. Yeah, but again, you know, things change. So going through it every year, right? Now, my dog, so now I have poop bags instead of cereal boxes, and I have, you know, just emergency dog food. Copy of your insurance. I couldn't believe the amount of people in last year with all the people that had to be evacuated. They didn't know who their insurance company was. They didn't know who their agent was. They had no idea about the policy, what it covered. Please review your documents. So I take pictures of everything. I email it to my husband. I save it on my computer. I print it off. It's in my desk at work. And I'm a little over. I get it. I probably have it like 6 different places. Same with my passports, anything in the hose. I have a fireproof box. Not all fireproof boxes are fireproof, which I learned during fire time. There's different things. But just all of those things. And I mean, I could spend days standing here talking about this, but it's really just take a look at what's important to you. How, you know, what your family dynamic is, whether it's old, whether it's young, whether it's a combination, you know, how you park your car, if you can get out, all those things. When we get to the community side is really where I want to focus, you know, how we can help. So, you know, I know egress was brought up, so before we even get there, I'll just bring it up now. HRM can only build secondary egress on land that it owns. We don't own any land in Mason's Point. So as Kara said, the community needs to band together. And I have talked to, and I know they're here somewhere, I just can't see anybody. We have talked about that. So we talked, and you know, Kara mentioned about the woods on this side, you know, not on this side. You can only control what you can control. So I do suggest with your fire department committee is to get together. You know, is the risk assessment done yet, Kara?
Yes.
What's that?
Yep.
Yeah? Okay. So, you know, have a look at that. I haven't seen it, but have a look at it and see where it makes sense. And we can work with you on where it makes sense for egress, and we can make recommendations, but only you can enact them. Again, you can get grants. There's, as Kara mentioned, there's things coming down the pipe, but it needs to be a true community effort. So what? What does that mean? It costs money, yeah. Is it going to work? Is it going to happen quickly? Absolutely not. It's not going to happen quickly. So, you know, those are reality. So what do we do then? So there's things that we can do. And I've talked to your committee about this. We can create a community HFX alert that would only be for members of your community in the event of a crisis event. So whether that's a fire, whether that's the highway is going to be closed, you know, cutting off your access, because you only have one road, cutting off your access. It could be a hurricane that has knocked power poles down. It could be whatever. I mean, who would have thought last year would be the 4X, right? So all of those things. So we can create an HFX alert. It's, so we, for privacy, I just want to mention it now. Only 3 people have access to it. It's myself and 2 of my staff. Just we need redundancies. And it will just go to whoever's on your group, and we will just say, road's going to close, or issues here. Or if you tell us, then we can alert the community, because we never know what's going on until somebody tells us. That's the other thing, right? But how do you get that to your community quickly, and how do you spread the word? This is just a suggestion. You don't have to do it, but it's just how we partner together to make your community safer. So happy to talk about that later if the community wants. Again, I'll leave it with your committee. establishing muster points, as the gentleman in the back mentioned earlier. So that is part of having an evacuation plan, is to establish muster points. So not everybody's going to be able to get out in their car. You know, if you look at Westwood Hills, if you look at Highland Park, there were many people who couldn't get their vehicles out. And that's always going to be an issue based on, again, the topography, how your subdivision's built. Thank you, I can actually see now. You know, and all of those factors. So we can send a bus out and put people on the bus and at least get everybody out safely that way. And then neighbor check-ins. And that's critical. But again, that's community helping community. And that's the way I grew up. And rural areas like this are always really good at that. City folk, not so much. No offense if anybody here is from the city, but it doesn't work well in the city. My sister lived in a condo downtown for 20 years. Like, she could be gone and her neighbors would never notice. Didn't even know her name, and that scares the crap out of you. So you're very blessed and very good. And that's it for me. I left it very short because I'm sure there's going to be questions. Go ahead.
Did you say HFX alert text-based, or is it phone call?
It's text, SMS, or email, so you can do all of the above or pick one. Anybody else?
For anyone who's interested, if you think you might forget what that link is, on the top of the orange sheet that we have is the link of where you can go to register for the Halifax alert. I registered and I got an alert about the fire on Release Street.
Yeah. No, so thanks for bringing that up. So there's two sides to HFX alert. There's a public facing, which you will get based on whatever the issue is and whoever requests the alert. This one would be specific for your community. So it's not just going online and signing it up. It would be, I would create a list just for your community members only to get. And again, it's your choice. Phone call, email, SMS, or, does that make sense to everybody?
So do we have that now? Is that group list
No.
created?
No. So it's up to everybody here. If you want that created, then I just need somebody to give me a list.
You need, they can't just contact and say, add me to the list?
Yeah, we can do it one of two ways. So we can have your, sorry, I just can't see. We can have, I feel like I'm at sea now. We can have, you know, the committee, the community committee, just take a list and gather it up. If people are not comfortable with that, you can certainly email me directly. I'll give it about, 14, 21 days, and then whatever I have on there, then I'll create the list and put it in HFX. So we can do either one.
Okay.
Eric, come over here.
Oh, is it better over there?
Oh, yeah.
You're back to the sun.
Oh, there we go.
Okay. Just before we move on, does anyone have any pressing questions for Erica? Okay, we still have lots of time. So, yeah.
It's not a question, it's just, we subscribe to the Halifax alert, works
Yep.
really well, thank you very much.
You're very
Also,
welcome.
subscribe to the voluntary, or the vulnerable person service. That also works very well, thank
Oh, I'm really glad to hear that, thank you. It's our baby, we're pretty proud of it.
you. Yeah, works good for us.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think, all of these options are really important for keeping it up to date. So that's sort of what our Fire Safety Society Masons Point has come from, is making sure that we're all staying informed, we're all helping each other, sort of creating a home base for our community to help spread this information. Before I joined up, before Cora wrote me into this, I had no idea what FireSmart was. I didn't know that Halifax Alert existed. I know that I get the ones on my phone from the Nova Scotia government. I know I get those alerts, but I didn't know that there were different types of alerts. I didn't know what the options were for our community. So part of what we want to do as the Fire Safety Society of Masons Point is help make sure that everybody knows that these things exist and knows how to access them as well. Okay, with that, maybe we'll go through a little bit of who we are and why we're here tonight. So this is Cynthia, for anyone who doesn't know Cynthia. Hello.
You'll have seen me in the neighborhood trying to make my way up Jack's Hill, walking my dog, who is Duke, which his name doesn't really go with how small he is.